The lights go out in a police station, and a police detective, as well as the suspect he's currently interrogating, hear gunshots from somewhere within the station. Silence follows, and the police detective, wondering what is going on, grabs his gun and moves slowly towards the window blinds to see if he can see anyone. He checks the first blind and spots no one before then moving to the second one. Unknown to him, one of the criminals who infiltrated the station is standing right outside it, with a machete in hand. After seeing no one, he begins to tilt his head towards the suspect. Just then, horror strikes, as the criminal standing outside lunges his blade through the window blinds and straight through the detective's cheek. The detective screams in agony before falling to the floor. The criminal then comes inside and faces the suspect, who is still in handcuffs. The suspect skillfully maneuvers his way, evading all the strikes from the criminal, and eventually, as the criminal strikes mindlessly, his chains get broken. The suspect picks up the table to protect himself from the assailant, and just when the criminal thinks he's struck him, the suspect surprises him and knocks him back, leaving his machete stuck in the table. The man then slams the table on the leg of the criminal, before grabbing his head and pushing it through the machete sticking out of it. In a certain prison, a notorious criminal boss, Lee, is about to escape from prison. A police detective comes to his cell to speak with him, when his plan to escape gets set in motion. The detective tosses Lee some pictures of kids who are his victims, and tells him that he is going to pay for his crimes. Facing Lee and backing away from the assailant, one of the police officers who came with the detective gets stabbed in the neck by one of the prisoners who is mopping the floor. As soon as this officer gets stabbed to death, it catches the attention of the officer in front of him. By the time the officer turns around, the prisoner shoots him at point-blank range with the gun taken from the stabbed officer. This loud bang turns the heads of the detective and the officers, causing them to engage in a shootout with the prisoner. Skillfully, the prisoner takes all the police officers out, dying in the process, and leaving just the detective alive. Moments later, Lee, who snatched the detective's gun when he tried to shoot at him through the opening of the cell door, banging his head against the door, making him stagger and fall back, shoots the lock of his cell door and gets out. After stepping out, he drops the gun in his hand and engages in a fist fight with the detective and overpowers him. With the detective on his knees, the criminal boss holds his head and snaps his jaw, killing him instantly. Soon after killing the detective, Lee opens the other prison cells, releasing the criminals within. Lee gives them instructions to get all the guns and go with them. Lee hands his pistol to one prisoner who has none, and when he turns a corner, he sees his fellow criminals about to have a face-off with the police. The criminal whom Lee gave a gun to is the first to break the silence by firing at the police. The police fire back, and when the shooting is over, everyone but a police officer is dead. Lee, who smartly clears the way for himself by doing this, steps out, walks towards the police officer who is still alive, and smashes his head against the wall. On a clear, cool day, a man named Romley is going about his day when he spots something on the beach. He steps out of his beach house and walks towards it, only to realize that it is a man who has washed ashore. 2 months later, a young woman, Eileen, rides her bike to a hospital where she works as a doctor and has been tending to the man who washed ashore. After going about her day, Eileen walks into the room where the man lies in a coma, in the evening, after work. She looks at him and wonders who could have hurt him that way, after seeing the scars on his body. Eileen wonders who the young man is. Moments later, Eileen, lying on a sofa beside the man in a coma, gets up to pick the patient's data board beside his bed. Eileen scribbles on it before going to bed. Later on, the man in a coma suddenly wakes up after having a disturbing memory of an event. Trying to get out of bed, the man falls, which instantly wakes Eileen up. She rushes to him and gently guides him back to the bed. The now awoken man asks Eileen where he is, to which she replies that he is in a hospital and has been there for a while. Eileen asks him about his relatives and family members, but the man doesn't respond, as he can't seem to remember important details about himself. Eileen asks him for his name and he looks towards the patient's data board and calls out the name, Ishmael, which Eileen scribbled on it earlier, as his name. Seeing as he couldn't provide his real name, Eileen goes with it, and walks out. Sometime later, Eileen examines Ishmael's brain scans and notices some foreign particles, which she can't remove, are present in his skull. Outside the hospital, Eileen grabs Ishmael's hands and takes him home, where she points towards where Romley, the man who dragged him from the beach 2 months before that time, saved him. Eileen lets Ishmael know that it is Romley he should be grateful to. Elsewhere, at a warehouse, not too far from the ocean, a group of men wait for the criminal boss, Lee, who recently escaped prison, to show up. When he arrives, he digs nonchalantly into the meal he brought along, not minding the 2 men seated in front of him. Soon, one of the men sitting in front of him tells Lee that he is cutting him loose. He makes it known to Lee that his guns are bad and that his cocaine supply is diluted as well. He tells Lee that he wanted to do business with him because of his reputation, and also adds that getting rid of him will greatly boost his own reputation. Lee, who is prepared for a confrontation, is indifferent as he has his guys waiting outside, ready to attack. Outside the warehouse, Lee's boys see the guys approaching the warehouse, meaning to do their boss harm. One of Lee's boys tells the others that he is going to handle it alone, and steps out of the van they are in. He approaches the men, takes them on single-handedly, and defeats them. Back inside, the lady Lee came to the warehouse with takes on the guys inside, and skillfully defeats them. Lee's skillful guy outside the warehouse signals to them inside that he has completed the job outside, and shortly after, he and the other guys in the van walk into the warehouse. With just the two men sitting in front of Lee and a few others being left alive, one of the men pulls out his gun and tries to shoot Lee, but misses. Lee grabs the man's arm holding the gun and stabs him on the neck with the chopsticks he used to have his meal, killing him almost instantly. Lee pulls a chair close to the other man and shoots the guys that are left behind him, confirming to the last man that his guns aren't bad. The other man starts to plead for his life, and not wanting to be killed, the man tells Lee that he has information that can be useful to him. He brings up Ishmael and makes it known to Lee that on the day he escaped from prison, Ishmael, who he heard is close to Lee, was found on the beach and brought to a hospital. Shortly after giving Lee this information, he gets shot in the ear, and Lee tells him to use his damaged ear as an opportunity to go to the hospital and confirm the information he just gave him. Elsewhere at the hospital, the man with the blown-out ear causes a scene, as he doesn't like the idea of waiting before seeing the doctor. This noise gets to Eileen, which makes her come out to see what is going on. Eileen takes the man inside and treats his injuries. He uses this opportunity to ask Eileen about Ishmael, who was treated at the hospital. Eileen doesn't deny it, and responds to him that she attends to many patients. Realizing that Eileen is hiding something from him, he tries to force her to talk, and while rough-handling her, Ishmael shows up to stop him and push him away. While Ishmael checks up on Eileen to see if she is alright, the man, there on Lee's behalf, strikes Ishmael with a bottle on the head, causing him to bleed. Ishmael doesn't go down easily and gets up to attack the man, pushing him against the wall before eventually letting him go. Later on, while walking in the rain, Eileen asks Ishmael if he knows the man who attacked him earlier, before she tells him that it could be dangerous for him to stay there. Eileen asks Ishmael to come with her to Jakarta and shows him an X-ray of his head, letting him know that foreign particles were found in his skull, which they cannot remove where they are, but with better facilities in Jakarta, it will become a possibility. Not knowing who he truly is due to his loss of memory, Ishmael asks Eileen if she would still be there for him if he happens to be a bad person. Eileen tells Ishmael that he isn't bad, but Ishmael makes it known to her that he needs to figure out who he really is and promises her that they will meet again. Eileen gives Ishmael a mobile phone with her phone number inside, telling him to find her in Jakarta after he finds himself. Shortly after doing this, Eileen and Ishmael hug each other. The next day, Ishmael is with Eileen as she awaits her bus, which will take her to the ferry station. Eileen calls to Ishmael, but he doesn't respond as he is lost in his memories, having flashes of past events before he lost his memory. Eileen grabs a hold of Ishmael before he is jolted back to reality. When the bus arrives, Eileen gets on board and departs. The man whom Ishmael fought with in the hospital is not far off as he tailed them to the bus station. Unknown to him, Ishmael doesn't get on board, as a bus blocks his view of him. The man and his fellow criminals tail the bus Eileen is in as it heads to the ferry station. Shortly after Eileen's bus leaves, Romley comes to get Ishmael. On the way, the vehicle in which the criminals are in goes ahead of Eileen's bus and parks on the road, blocking the progress of any vehicle that comes their way. When the bus in which Eileen is in gets to the parked vehicle, it has no choice but to stop. As soon as the driver stops, they are ambushed by the criminals. Instantly, the driver gets riddled with bullets before they get on the bus and demand Ishmael, whom they refer to as Abi, from the passengers. Eileen quickly puts a call through to Ishmael, letting him know that she is in danger and that their driver has been shot. With no one responding to their questions, the criminals shoot sporadically at the passengers, killing all but two of them, Eileen and a little girl who calls out to her dead mom. When the criminals discover the little girl, they make a move to kill her before Eileen steps out, preventing them from killing her. The criminals ask Ishmael's whereabouts from her, and Eileen lets them know that he never left where they were. Soon, Ishmael and Romley arrive at the gory scene on Romley's bike. When Ishmael gets on the bus, he sees a lot of dead bodies, but not that of Eileen. Moments later, one of Lee's men steps onto the bus and plans to set it on fire when he spots Ishmael. After Ishmael tells the man that he is looking for his friend, the man brings out a machete and attacks Ishmael. Ishmael evades the man's strikes before breaking his arm. Another one of Lee's men gets on the bus and joins in the attack. Ishmael defeats him, and while lying on the bus's floor, Another one of Lee's men comes in and pours gasoline on his body. Before he can set Ishmael on fire, he kicks the criminal in the leg, causing him pain, before sending him flying backwards. After some time, one of Lee's men walks onto the bus and sets it on fire before leaving and closing it behind him. In a desperate attempt to avoid being cooked alive, Ishmael breaks the glass at the rear of the bus after a few tries and escapes the fire. As soon as Ishmael lands outside the bus, he gets attacked again. Romley, who comes to help Ishmael, gets himself shot in the stomach before Ishmael smashes the shooter's head in. He runs to Romley's side to check on his injury and tells him to hold on. Moments later, the police arrive and knock him out, before taking him away. Elsewhere, the criminals bring Eileen and a little girl to their hideout. The man Lee took part of his ear off begins to yap a lot to the annoyance of Lee's men. One of them turns towards him and riddles his body with bullets. Eileen gets separated from the little girl and is kept in a different place. When Ishmael regains consciousness, he finds himself in handcuffs in the police station, with the detective sitting in front of him. The detective asks him about his relationship with Romley before asking Ishmael to tell him about everything that happened at the scene of the crime. Ishmael lets the detective know that he has to find his friend, Eileen, insisting on being innocent of the deaths of the people on the bus. Moments later, after claiming his innocence, the police officer opens a file in front of Ishmael, showing a picture of Lee, and asks him if he knows the crime boss. Ishmael doesn't give a positive response, prompting the detective to tell him a story about the notoriety of Lee to jolt his memory. The detective lets Ishmael know that whenever Lee surfaces, he leaves the scene in a gory state, and children go missing. The detective tells Ishmael that Lee trains the children to become smugglers, plunderers, and killers, with all of them willing to die for their mysterious terrorist master, Lee. After hearing this, Ishmael asks the police detective what the story has to do with him. To answer his question, the detective takes off the first picture of Lee, which he showed him, only to reveal another picture of Lee and Ishmael together. Ishmael tries to speak to say something in his defense, but the lights go off in the police station. Moments later, Ishmael and the detective hear gunshots afar off. The detective picks up his gun and moves towards the window blinds, but isn't quick enough to see one of the criminals, who Lee sent to kill Ishmael. He gets stabbed in the face and falls to the ground, before the criminal comes in to try and kill Ishmael. With quick reflexes and skill, Ishmael defeats the criminal, planting his face through the machete sticking out of the table, killing him swiftly. Moments later, some other criminal guys come towards the room where Ishmael is. They toss a grenade into the room, but Ishmael is quick enough to grab the table and defend himself from the blast. After the blast, the criminal guys make a move to enter the room, but Ishmael, who has picked up the detective's gun, jumps out through the window, appears behind Lee's men, and shoots at them, killing them all with precision. Ishmael tries to get out of the station, but as he makes his way towards the door, he spots two more of Lee's men, Teju and Tano, who open fire on him. Ishmael is quick enough to evade the shooting, and after a fierce battle between them, Ishmael comes out on top, killing one with a shotgun and bashing the head of the other in. Elsewhere, Lee walks into the room where Eileen is being held, with the little girl who was separated from her earlier. Eileen asks who he is and what Ishmael is to him. Moments after killing Teju and Tano, Ishmael, who was shot in the head, making him lose his memory, begins to get some of his memory back of him with Teju and Tano together again. He is jolted back to reality when Lee calls his guys, who are now dead, to tell them not to kill Ishmael, as he now needs him alive. Ishmael picks up the phone to let Lee know that he is alive and that he will come for him. Lee sends his location to the phone Ishmael is holding, and Ishmael heads out to set Eileen free. When Ishmael gets close, he sees a familiar well, and more of his memory comes back to him. He recalls that the well used to be a place where Lee put all the children he forcefully took from their parents, making them fight and kill for survival. One of his old associates appears behind him and offers him water to drink. He lets Ishmael know that he would let him live if he backs away. Ishmael doesn't agree to it as he needs to save Eileen. Ishmael fights with him, and after a while, he delivers a killer blow to him. Lee's man staggers and stumbles till he gets to a clearing, falls, and dies in front of a beach. Ishmael, who is called Abi by Lee and his boys, goes to check on him, and by the time he gets to him, he is already dead. Moments later, while Ishmael kneels beside the dead man, Rika, the woman who shot him, leaving him for dead and making him lose his memory, comes from behind and shoots at him. Ishmael dodges and hides behind a rock. Ishmael catches her off guard, throws beach sand at her, and disarms her. Pointing the gun at her face, Rika asks Ishmael if he remembers her, and Ishmael replies to her, telling her to take him to Eileen. Gun behind her head, Rika walks forward on Ishmael's request. Rika puts up a resistance, draws her blade, and begins to fight with Ishmael. Ishmael, not wanting to fight with her, killing her in the process, holds back and gives her multiple opportunities to stay alive. In the end, Rika pulls a gun lodged beside her leg and purposely shoots away from Ishmael. Ishmael, not seeing this, is forced to throw the blade with him at her, striking Rika in the chest. Before Rika dies, she tells Ishmael that they are now even, as he has taken her life for what she did to him when she shot him in the head. Ishmael calls Lee and lets him know that he remembers everything now. He tells Lee that he raised them to be wolves and that all they were good at was killing. Lee tells Ishmael to come home so that they can settle things, but he replies to him, letting Lee know that he is already there, which catches Lee by surprise. Elsewhere, one of Lee's men walks into the room where Eileen and the little girl are. He places his gun down and tries to forcefully have his way with Eileen. The little girl in the corner picks up a plate and smashes it on the criminal's head, but it has little effect on him. Soon enough, Eileen gets a hold of his gun and shoots him many times in the chest, killing him instantly. Moments later, Eileen, with the gun in hand, and the little girl walk out of the room and head towards safety. On their way, they encounter a few of Lee's men and shoot at them. Soon enough, Eileen is backed into a corner as she runs out of bullets. Before she is hurt by any of Lee's men, Ishmael comes in to save the day. When Eileen, having found out the truth about Ishmael, steps out, she points a knife at him, telling him to back away from them, as he is just like Lee and his men. Ishmael tries to calm her down, letting her know that she is right and that he is just like them, but he needs her to save him again. Ishmael holds Eileen in an embrace, while Lee stands by the entrance watching. Lee makes his move and attacks. An intense face-off occurs between them, with Ishmael taking the beating from Lee. After some time, Ishmael gets the upper hand, striking and beating Lee mercilessly. When Lee stands up, he makes a run for it by heading out the nearest door to wait for Ishmael. Ishmael immediately follows Lee outside the building, and there, he breaks Lee's arms and deals him the killer blow by slamming him into a tree with a pointy end, which pierces Lee in the chest. Lee grabs Ishmael and tries to pierce him with the end sticking out of his chest, so that they die together, but Eileen arrives just in time to pull him away and save him. After their ordeal with Lee, Eileen takes Ishmael to Jakarta, like she has always wanted to, and there he recuperates from his injuries sustained throughout his many fights. In the end, Ishmael gets his revenge on the man who raised him to become a monster, while also saving the woman who previously saved him as well. Do you think Eileen would have ever saved Ishmael and stood by him for 2 months while he was in a coma if she knew the kind of man he previously was? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, guys. Peace out.